This slide presentation for week 1 of Humanities 213 is the second slide presentation, and it covers writing and the rise of civilization. If you go to the next slide, I ask, why did writing come
Please
about?
note that writing's emergence in both Egypt and Mesopotamia nearly simultaneous.
And we'll get into that.
That writing's emergence coincides with
to the next slide.
the beginning of the Bronze Age.
Look at the emergence of writing.
In both places.
The first writing dates to around
the beginning of
3200
civilization,
BC.
as it's recognized,
just before this,
and
rudimentary
the movement
kind of
toward
writing.
empire,
So this date is flexible.
which
It first appeared in Mesopotamia.
both cultures
that
will
is
begin to use
the area of modern
the
Iraq.
newly invented
And
wheel
then,
and
not long
wheeled
afterward,
wagon.
I mean within perhaps
Note that
decades to a
this
century,
is about
it
600
appeared
years
in Egypt, but it
before
was a different
the pyramids,
form of writing that appeared in Egypt.
the Pyramid Age.
So
It should also
writing
be noted
emerged
that
in
writing
both
is
places.
the beginning of history.
Before writing, and they're separated
is
by
no
a
history
desert,
as we know it.
There's a way to get
There is to
prehistory
Egypt
from Mesopotamia, and
history,
vice versa
is what we
but,
know we can document from
Egyptologists
human
and
records.
Assyriologists. Assyriologists
Thus,
are people who
we
specialize
say
in
that writing
Mesopotamia.
is the beginning
We'll go back
of
and
history.
forth about who came up with the.
When discussing history and the peoples of history, it is important to make a distinction between what is a culture and what is a civilization. This slide helps with that distinction. All peoples have some form of culture, but not all cultures are what later will be termed civilizations. Civilization is a much later development in human, I want to say human history, but it's actually, civilization is the beginning of history, because usually it involves the use of writing. Before writing, everything is prehistory. Writing is the beginning of history, and civilization is associated with that. On this slide you have from an old humanities text I've used here at Cal Baptist, a decent description of each, but the one on the next slide by the Cambridge archaeologist, highly regarded Colin Renfrew, will make it even clearer what a civilization is, and we need to keep that in mind as we go through, especially this first week. Here is Colin Renfrew's very helpful description, rather definition, of civilization. Please keep the highlighted characteristics in mind as you proceed through this lecture.
When looking at civilization as a concept, there are two very important elements involving civilization. The first is a surplus of food. It, in fact, is essential to building a civilization. And secondly, writing is very important. So the next couple of slides will look at these two key aspects or elements of civilization.
A surplus of food is a key characteristic of civilizations. A surplus of food allows some within the civilization to pursue other interests. If one looks at the civilizations that have arisen through history, one notes reliance on particular high energy containing foods such as corn, otherwise known as maize, wheat, barley, rice, and potatoes. Yet with the surplus of food comes social stratification. We find this also occurring within civilizations. a further separation of the haves and the have-nots. The big house is often by the granary. Just think of the story of Joseph in Genesis, and the power yielded by controlling the granaries. So with civilization comes the blessings of writing and recording history and scientific investigation, but there's also the hardships that countless people have endured because of the intensified social stratification that occurs within a civilization.
As was stated before, writing emerged first in Mesopotamia in the culture known as Sumer, and it is connected with commerce, business. Of those 250,000 clay tablets that have been discovered, 95% of them are economic in nature. But also implied by all these clay tablets is a sophisticated education system. Now, when writing emerges among the ancient Greeks, it too will emerge due to its need in commerce. Writing is useful for record keeping, administration, figuring and collecting taxes, and in contracts. In fact, one of the most famous books written on ancient Sumer is Samuel Kramer's History Begins at Sumer, and I like to somewhat paraphrase the title as Business as Usual Begins at Sumer, because it's at Sumer that the whole area of record keeping and administration and all that kept so formally in writing begins. If you find yourself uncomfortable with the date of April 15th, as so many do, feel the pressure, well, you can blame the Sumerians. Continuing with the uses of writing, writing is the basis of education today. Writing is what made possible the recording of history, as well as the recording of celestial events. That is, events occurring in the heavenlies. Records were kept. And in the long run, it was revealed by such record keeping that there was a regularity to the cosmos. And that regularity laid the foundation for the later emergence of what we know as science, especially among the Greeks. Thus, before the emergence of writing, I note once again, we speak of prehistory. After the beginning of writing, we speak of history. Briefly, here is a cuneiform tablet from Mesopotamia, and on the next slide you will see hieroglyphic writing. As writing is the basis of education, and they are very different from each other. A number of these writings in this course. The two earliest list of forms of writing that are clearly ancient writing, noted as being writing.